Albert Einstein once said that pure math is the poetry of logical ideas. James Joseph Sylvester, an early English mathematician, called it the music of reason. Hi, I'm Justin, Martin's brother, and welcome back to the wonderful world of Python. Today, we'll be learning about how to use math in Python. Why would you want to do math in Python is a question I get really often. But let's think about it. Math is the logical language that keeps our universe running, our technology moving, and our games playable. But let's face it, math can sometimes be confusing, and you may not even like it. Well, that's where Python comes in. Python understands our predicament and enables us to easily write out mathematical expressions. There are four very basic and very simple math operations we can make in Python. These are basic arithmetic operations you become so accustomed to from math class. Let's open up the IDLE and get running. The first math operation is addition, and it's quite simple. We just type print 2 plus 2. Quite simple. The same goes for subtraction, the second basic math operation. We type print 2 minus 2, and we get 0. Again, super simple. I'm sure you've guessed it by now, but it works the same for multiplication and division, the last two basic operations. As computer programmers, however, we must use special symbols. This is mainly because computers do not have standard multiplication or division symbols. For multiplication, we use the asterisk, such as I do right here. Print 2 asterisk 2. We would read that as 2 times 2. And we get 4. 2 times 2 is 4. For division, we use a normal forward slash, such as this example. Print 2 slash 2. And we get 1. Perfect, it's all coming together now. Math is super simple, and especially so with Python. So let's try a bigger example now. Let's say I want to add 2 and 2, and then multiply the result by 4. What I would do is type print 2 plus 2 slash 4. And the answer we're expecting is 1. Oh no, we got 2.5. How? That doesn't seem right. After all, 2 plus 2 is 4, and then 4 divided by 2 should be 1. So why didn't we get that answer? Well, I forgot one small but very crucial detail about Python and math. Python respects the order of operations, the same order of operations you've learned in school. So essentially what happened with our example is that Python divided 2 by 4 first, or this part right here. And then after it did that part, it added the entire thing to 2. If we want to get the answer of 1, what we have to do is type print, and then put the 2 plus 2 in parentheses, such as right here. And then we can do slash 4. Perfect, we got 1. So we can see the order of operations work exactly like they do in normal math. Perfect, so now we know a bit more about how to operate math in Python. But you'll notice something interesting about the output we get from Python during division. For example, you were taught in school that 7 divided by 2 was 3, with a remainder of 1, of course. However, when we do this in Python, which you can type out as print 7 divided by 2, we get 3.5. Notice how that's a decimal number. Decimal numbers are also called a float in programming. So we could also say we got the float of 3.5. We call them floats because the decimal appears to be just floating there. Is there a way to do normal division in Python? Well, I'm glad you asked, because there is. But first, we should clarify its programming term. We call this type of division integer division in programming. Now, if you don't know what an integer is, no worries. Essentially, it's any whole number that's either positive or negative. So for example, it could be 1, 10, 23, -4, or even 453. Integer division in Python is pretty simple. To get the quotient, we do the following. Print 7 slash slash 2. Notice that there are 2 slashes here. And we get 3. That's what we would get when we normally divide 7 by 2. But now we would want to get the remainder. And the way we do that in Python is by doing print 7 modulus 2. And notice how the modulus is a percent sign. What that does is it gives us the following. 1. It gives us the remainder of the division. Great, so now that you've learned all 4 basic math operators and integer division in Python, you have practically 99% of the knowledge you need for programming math in Python. However, I'm sure you would appreciate this really special operator, which will save you a ton of time. Let's say you wanted to multiply 2 by itself 6 times. Exactly like this. Print 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 and times 2. Notice how that's multiplying 2 6 times by itself. When we hit enter, we get 64. But also notice how this is the same as 2 to the power of 6. If we could somehow use the power of 6 on 2, we would save a ton of time. And that's exactly why it would be way easier to use the exponent notion in Python. The way we do that is by doing print 2 times 6. Notice here that we have 2 asterisks. When we hit enter, we get 64. We get the same exact answer. See how much more easy that was? Alright, there are 2 more operators that may save you some time. We have the increment operator and the decrement operator. The increment operator increments or increases the variable that it is used on. Vice versa for the decrement or decrease operator. Let's look at this example. Let's say we have the variable number. We set that equal to 10. Now let's say we want to increment that by a certain number. Let's say that number is 1. We do number plus equals 1. Did it work? Let's see. We can print number, and we should get 11. So perfect, it worked. Python incremented the variable number by the number 1 we provided. Does the decrement operator work in the same way? Well, let's test it out. Number minus equals 1. Let's see what that gives us. Print number, we get 10. Perfect, that's pretty simple. And now that we've covered that, we pretty much covered all the operators in Python. But there's one last important piece of information you need. Let's take this example. Let's say I want to print one really large number with a lot of zeros, and then a decimal number with decimals at the end, and then multiply that by another really large number with some decimals at the end as well. Then what we get is this really interesting number. It has a decimal and then e plus 30 at the end. What is that e in this number? Well, that's a good question. And the operation we just did was a very huge operation with a very huge number. Python's just trying to make the display look a little bit better by using something called Enotation. Enotation is practically the computer version of something called scientific notation. If you don't know what scientific notation is, then no worries at all. It's quite complex to think about at first, but super easy once you've been taught it. Essentially, it allows us to record very large or very small numbers easily. For example, say I have the number 36,000. 36,000. I could also use scientific notation and make that 3.6 times 10 to the positive 4th power. Using Enotation, that would simply become 3.6 E4. The reason we use Enotation in programming versus the formatting of scientific notation is because showing a multiplication of 10 and exponents isn't as easy as using the letter E. It doesn't look as good. Well, congratulations! You now have the skills and tools in your toolbox to conquer the world of math with Python. Remember the words of our wise mathematician friends. Math is the logical language that keeps our universe running, our technology moving, and our games playable. You now have the key to that door that unlocks the world. My name is Justin. It was a pleasure.